Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
George Aguirre, Andrew Elbert Alderman, Stephen Ray Armistead, Delmer Virgil Ashbrook, Thomas David Barber, Lawrence William Barishich, Terrence Edward Barney, Richard Lee Bowman, Robert Boughton Beale, Herbert Michael Beaumont, Louis Martin Beckman, Edgar Dwayne Bell, Lee David Benson, Harold Peter Berg, John Lee Bingley Jr., James Guy Blackshear, Garland Claude Bobbitt, James Miles Brandon Jr., Ralph Alton Branson Jr., James Harold Braxton, William Francis Brooks, Richard Allen Brown, Wavery Hugh Buchanan, James Robert Birch Jr., Daniel Lee Burr, Robert Byrell Cannon, Edward Louis Chappelle, Virgil Eugene Childers, Albert Crisunis Christie, Jerry Michael Chungus, Hugh Clower Jr., George William Coleman, John James Conway, William Hover Craig Jr., Richard Anthony Crocker, Robert Wayne Culver, Dennis Lane Cunningham, Jeff Carruthers, Benedict Maher Davin, John Charles Davenport, Louis Anthony Davis, Charles Edward Davis Jr., Harold Paul Degner, Merwin A. Delano Jr., Mario Frank DiMatteo, Michael Joseph S. DePaul, Robert Floyd Dice, David Thomas Deenan III, Craig Mitchell Dix, Donald Joe Dobbs, Herman Dolger Landivar, Howard Elmer Drain, Roger Evans Duncan, Charles Elbert Finney, John Foldvary Jr., Roger Lynn Garlick, Carl Edward Garza, Carl Louis Gilbertson, Jean William Godin, Robert Carroll Green, Robert Eugene Green, Larry D. Greenhelge, Lawrence Alphonse Grenham, James Michael Gribben,
Donald Orthel Griffin, Richard James Grooms, David Livingstone Groves, Lyle Cleveland Hansbrough, John James Harris, Bobby Glenn Harris, Leon Anderson, Thomas Truett Hensley, Douglas Gregory Howes, Donald Richard Hubbs, Joseph William Hudson, Paul Carling Hunter, Robert Anthony Itzo, Edwin Orrin Ives, David Eric Jackson, Michael Charles Jackson, Vernon Dwayne Jacobs, Turner Coleman Johnson, Wayne Lamont Jordan, Julio Caneco, Harry Carlton King, Raymond Sidney Kipp, David Russell Kruger, Lawrence Lee LaSalle, Charles Wesley Lance, James Douglas Law, Dennis Roland Lawrence, Benjamin Lee, Felix Leon Jr., John Andrew Lestelle II, Lawrence Eugene Lilly, David Lee Lipscomb, J. Harrison Manchester, Raimundo Marquez Quinones, Donald Charles McNack, David Howard Mealy, Richard James Megan, John Michael Miner, David Arthur Mitchell, Richard Allen Moore, John James Moynihan, Ray Murphy, Virgil Arthur Murray, George Franklin Myrick, Robert Gerald Nally, Stephen Browning Neal, Jack Lee Nydrick, William George Newbold, Randall John Nightingale, William Theodore Norris, Truman Dennis Norris, Joe Russell Peck, Joseph A. Petrarca, Jimmy Ray Pierce, James Jody Pockey, Alexander Frank Potus, Earl Thomas Quillen, Dewey Junior Ray, Robert John Reaganhart Jr., James Richmond Riley, Thomas Leon Robinson, Larry Joe Rogers, J. Lynn Ross Jr., John Leonard Ruth,
David Allen Russell, Thomas Lawrence Ryan, Ronald Oliver Scharnberg, Charles Howard Schelling, William David Schlutter, Erwin Ross Schmeling, Stephen Russell Scrivener, Douglas Milton Seeley, David Howard Sevier, Alan Paul Sheehan, Gordon Shepard, Don Smith, Tommy Lee Stevens, Joseph Pat Strapoli Jr., Brian James Sutton, Edward Antone Swanky Jr., Wendell Gene Taylor, Lester Keith Taylor Jr., Johnny Merritt Tennant, Thomas Edward Testorf, Robert Joseph Thomas, Joseph Clayton Thorne Jr., Furman Andrew Titus, Patrick Joseph Tremblay, Otto Dale Tucker, Rodney Ray Uberman, Alberto Vadi Rodriguez, Richard Jerome Vetter, Charles Allen Walters, Columbus Watson Jr., Bobby Lynn Weathers, Mark Andrew Weichart, James Calvin Williamson, Richard Herbert Wilson, Earl Lee Wilson, James Witt, Richard Wolfington Jr., Thurman Woody Jr., Bernard Anthony Zambrano,